Hello guys, today we have one of the most inspiring Indian young pilot who fell in love with paragliding in the year 1994, who is here today to share his story. Hope it will be very inspiring for us. Hi Debu, nice to have you here today. You are one of the India's iconic pilot. People love to follow you. They love to know more about you. Can you please explain more in detail about your paragliding life?
So I think the first time I actually saw paragliding, I was maybe 11 or 12 years old, and I grew up in Manali. And it was actually either Bruce or Gilles, who are both who later became good friends. I saw one of them fly from the top of the mountain, and it seemed very exciting. And I was like, "Wow, that looks so cool, man!" And then later, I saw them a few times, but never really got the opportunity. But later, when I was 14 years old, I was skiing in Manali, and one day when we were skiing, Mr. Roshan Lal, who was the first paraglider in Manali, turned up with his glider. And that was the first time I got to see a paraglider close up. And I was like, wow. And he was going for a small flight and he said to me, he said, "Hey, chote, mera glider utha le." So I carried his glider up to the takeoff with the skis and I helped him lay it out and I helped him launch. And I was amazed. I was like, wow, this looks so much fun. I want to try. And he said to me, "You come back in spring when there's no snow and you can have a go." So as soon as there was no snow, I turned up there, and that was the first time he gave me the glider and explained a little bit. And then I started ground handling, and since then, after the first touch, it caught me. Also, I mean, from before, I love mountains and mountain sports and being outdoors in the nature. And since I was a young boy, I was 14 when I started, and since then, yeah, till now the passion is still there, and that's how it all kind of started.
Which year this was?
1994.
So how did you take it forward from there?
So after I did my first few hops in Solang Nala with Roshan, I used to be in school, yeah. So every weekend I would go there, and he had a small school, and I would help in the school. I would carry the gliders up, and in the evening when all the gliders were free, I would get to go have one or two little flights just on the slope. So I did that for the whole year, and towards the end of the year, he made us all. There was like a group of us young guys, and we all had our first high flight, which was about 400 or 500 meters. And so after I did that, then obviously I had no glider, and obviously my parents weren't rich enough to buy a glider. Also, they weren't very happy about it. You know, your 15-year-old son is paragliding. My mom was a little worried, which is normal. So after that, I kept bothering my parents for a glider, for a glider. I need my own glider, this and that. So when I was 15, I'm not sure how, but they bought me a glider, a cheap glider from another friend, Gilles, in Switzerland, which they said, when you grow up and you make the money, you can repay us. So which was very good. So I had my own glider, but I had to fly it under supervision of Roshan Lal. That was the condition. So I flew the next year a few small flights. Then in 95, we actually came to Billing for the first time. It was the first Indian National Championships. And a whole team from Manali came and we had a really good time. It was the first time I flew from Billing in 95. And we had a great competition. I came fifth. This was in 95, yeah. And then in 96, after I finished my 10th exams, I needed a new glider because that one was getting old. And my parents said, okay, we'll give you a year off. And my mother is Italian, so I'm half Italian, which I was lucky enough. She said, okay, you can go to Italy and you work for 6 months and you make some money and you buy your paraglider and you leave us alone. So I went to Italy and I worked for 6 months every day washing dishes from 9 in the evening till 4 in the morning in like a nightclub. And I made good money and I saved the money and I bought myself a paraglider and everything, came back to India and came to Billing. That was the first season we had here in 96. We was about 6 pilots and Gilles was like our guru. And he taught us a lot of things and we flew every day in Billing for a month and a half and we had a really nice time. After that I went to Kamshet and Goa and all these places. And then the next year my parents said, okay, your year off is finished, now you go back to school. And we went to look at a couple of schools and I said no. I said I have enough money for a ticket, so I went back to Italy and worked again for 6 months, bought another glider And from there, I carried on doing that for a few years. I would work the summer season, and then I would come and fly during the winter and autumn in beer. And I would fly as much as possible, you know, it was as much as possible. And yeah, from there, that's how it progressed.
Very nice. So Debu, now you really got serious into flying now. So uh, how did you make your progression from here?
So in the early years, like as you know, the equipment was also not very safe and not very good. So we had, I would not like in the first few years, we progressed very slowly compared to what people learn nowadays. Like nowadays, people take up paragliding, and in 3 years they can become a champion even.
Yeah.
For us, it took a long time because we didn't have anyone to teach us. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have the knowledge base or the safety of the equipment. So we took it very slowly, which was probably a good thing. We had some close calls, and we learned a lot of things by trial and error. So we would try stuff and we're like, oh, that's not a good idea. Let's not do that again. or And then in Billing, we slowly started doing cross-country flights. We wouldn't go very far, you know. We would go to maybe Jogindanagar and back to the big face. And each year we would progress a little bit more and push it a little bit further. Then also I started to get very interested with acrobatic flying in the early years. So I would started doing wing overs and loops and all this. And I also kind of taught myself because again, we didn't have anyone to teach us. So I'd look at magazines, or sometimes we would find a video and we'd watch the video again and again. And slowly we progressed. You know, I got better and better as a pilot. And by about 2000, we were doing quite good flights, Dharamsala and back. Me and Andy were the first people to fly to Manali. We did it in 2000. It was something we thought not even possible, but when we did it, we're like, actually, it's quite easy. And that was the first opening of the back in beer. And then from there, I progressed to quite a good level, and in acro also quite a good level. But I reached around 2001, 2002, I reached a point where I felt kind of stuck. I was quite good, but I was not really progressing, and the motivation was a little down. And so it was interesting. But then I did my first competition here in 2002, and we had some real world-class pilots arrive. And when I saw them flying, you know, before I thought I was good. I was like, yeah, you know, I know how to fly. I'm the dude. And then we saw these guys, and I'm like, I'm a bacha. I've got lots to learn still. So from there, I was lucky enough after that, they invited me to France to do a World Cup. So in 2003, I went and did a World Cup. It was my first big competition, actually, straight into a World Cup, which was quite a shock. But I did okay. And then and then after that, I got addicted to doing competitions. So I spent the next years from 2002 to 2012 putting all my time, energy, and money into doing competitions. Unfortunately, I didn't have much support from anyone, so I did it myself. Towards the end, I found some sponsors and stuff, but it took 10 years of competing a lot to actually start getting results and being consistent. And so yeah, that's kind of how the flying progressed. I also did a lot of acro between 2000 and 2007. I started competing in 2004 and did quite a few acro competitions, which was very good for my flying as well. It helped me progress. But after a certain point, I got a little tired of acro because it's a lot of same maneuvers practicing again and again. And I found the cross-country flying much more interesting, and the competitions more interesting and satisfying. So I focused more on cross-country and almost stopped doing acro. I do some basic acro now, but just for fun.
So Debu, paragliding is a very expensive sport.
Yeah.
And now you got the hang of it, and you want to do it more seriously. So how did you manage your finances?
So I mean, my parents were not rich. So like I said before, when I was 16, so between 16 and 19, I used to go to Europe and work in the summer in restaurants. I did washing dishes, waitering, cooking, barman, everything. And I would work for 6 months in the summer, which would, I would save enough money to be able to come back to India and spend 6 months just flying, yeah. And then in 2000, I decided to do something else. In the beginning, when I was with paragliding, I didn't want to make it my profession because I knew a lot of friends who were tandem pilots, and I feel a lot of them lost the passion after they started making money with tandems. You know, they wouldn't be so interested to fly alone. So I didn't want to do it as a profession. So in 2000, I started with a friend. We started a trekking company. So we would run trekking groups in North India, Manali and Bir. and we would work pretty much the whole year through, except the summer, and that would be my main work, and the money I saved from that in the summer 2 months I would go to Europe and do competitions and spend it all. So I did that for about 7 years till about 2007. And in between as well, the people from Nepal invited me to join them. There was the first company, Sunrise Paragliding. They said, we need a tandem pilot. We know you know how to do tandems. So I said, okay, I'll start doing tandems. What to do? It's something I like to do and I can make money. So I started doing tandems there. And so then every winter I would go to Nepal for 2 or 3 months and do tandems. And spring and autumn I would do the trekking business, and that kept me going. I wouldn't save money. I didn't save any money for 10 years while I was doing comps. And then around 2007 or 2008, I started guiding. Eddie and Jim, friends of mine who run Himalayan Sky Safaris, invited me to guide. And I started guiding in beer, and that went quite well. And I got to fly cross country and get paid for it, which was pretty much you can't ask for much better, really. It's a lot of responsibility, but it's fun. You keep people safe and you show them the place. So I started doing more and more guiding and more paragliding work since then. So then I went to Austria and got my tandem license there, and I did 3 seasons there. And since then to now, I've been doing more and more paragliding work and running. And then I started running SIV courses. So I run SIV courses. I do a lot of guiding. And a few tandems a year now. I do less tandems than before because it's hard work. And till now, I'm lucky enough that I can manage to manage my finances with all of that. Since a few years as well, we have been selling equipment in India. I've been helping Bhaktu, and that also is like a extra little side bonus. But yeah, my main work would be guiding and tandems and SIVs.
Excellent. So much dedication, so much time, energy, money, lot of things. Most of the life into it. What actually keeps you moving?
Uh, it's hard to describe in words, but as a pilot, you know the special feeling we get when sometimes, for me, it's yeah, hard to describe in words, but the freedom of being in these places and flying around and being privileged to be in some special places when you fly around, for me, that's worth more than everything that's been put in. And yeah, for example, I mean, like, when I fly in the back here or in Manali, and like, say, summiting a 5,600-700 meter peak by paraglider is a very special feeling, no? So going high and then doing big distances and spending hours in the air, I don't know, I mean, I think all paragliders maybe feel a little bit the same way. For us, it's a special place. It's a place where we go, and you kind of feel at peace, and it's nice, no?
No, it is a great recognition you have got because for what you have done.
Yeah.
I don't think you have thought that this is the kind of recognition you will get it. They
Yeah.
just come through only through the passion that I'll do this, I'll do
Yeah.
that, I'll do more. Let's talk about little bit about your competition achievement.
So with competition, like I said before, when I realized that there is so much more to learn, how to fly faster, be efficient and everything. And I think competition, for me, what it did, it re-motivated me for another 10 years of my flying career, which was what I needed, and which we are always, I mean, as someone who's, all us pilots who have been flying for a very long time, we have to find things that keep us motivated to do it. Otherwise, it's just like, if it's just to go flying, it doesn't become boring. But for me, I need to keep finding different things that keep me motivated. So for 10 years, competition kept me really motivated. And also the beautiful thing about paragliding is that we never stop learning and becoming better. Like, even after 24 years of flying, I still feel each year I improve, and my knowledge base becomes bigger and my understanding becomes better. So yeah, with the competitions, it motivated me, and it took a long time. In the beginning, it's hard because you make mistakes, and you don't get the expectations that you were expecting. But it's very hard. But eventually, after 10 years of trying and learning, I never had any coach or any coaching program. It was all kind of alone and with friends. I managed to reach kind of where I wanted. I got in the top 50 in the world. I came in the top 20 in a World Cup, and It was great. It was great fun, and I got to travel a lot of places and meet a lot of good friends who are now very good friends. But then I had children, and the motivation shifted, and what's it called? The priorities shifted. So I decided that I would stop doing competitions for a while, maybe not permanently. Maybe I'll come back. I just recently did one, and it's going quite well. So that was kind of competition achievements, and otherwise just free flying, like in Beer, the big distance flights. I think in 2009, I decided to try and do a big flight. I said it must be possible to do 200 kilometers. No one's done 200 kilometers in India or in Asia for that, I think. And in 2009, I did 211 kilometers one day, and I was like, okay. So since then, every spring we come back and we're a bunch of friends and we try and better and better and better that. So some years, some other friends did more. The next year was me. This year I was lucky, I broke it again. Now it's 256 or something. And I know it's just a number, it doesn't matter. But for me, it gives me the motivation to come and spend a week flying with friends, and it gives me a goal to chase, which makes it more fun and more exciting. So that's kind of it. And then also flying in the big mountains and flying high is very, very special because you sometimes you put yourself in a situation where it might be risky and stuff, but for me it's worth it. The views and the feeling you get of being up there and discovering new places and doing all of that it's a very special feeling.
I think you have flown some of the places which nobody has seen. I have seen some of your videos which you have shared, and can you describe a little bit about the beauty behind?
Yeah, behind here, I mean, now it's been discovered a lot, but in the early years we used to push inside, and it's always a special feeling to go somewhere where no one has ever been before, or to see a view that no one has had that viewpoint before, because they have it from a paraglider, maybe from a helicopter they had that. But yeah, it's a very special feeling to go in places, and it's a very humbling feeling. You know, you really respect the nature, and you're thankful for being able to be privileged enough to have that view and that moment. You know, it's sometimes it's very emotional. Also, you get yeah.
Debu, now you see that recently the next generation pilots who are learning much faster and really doing well. I'm so happy. I just want you to give them a message.
So the message for young pilots, first of all, I'm really happy to see that there is so much motivation and so many new young blood coming. It makes me really happy because for quite a while, for quite a few years, it was kind of stagnating. We didn't have any new blood, any new pilots coming out, yeah. In the north, everyone is a tandem pilot. They don't really care about flying, it's only tandems. But in the last few years, many boys from Manali, many boys from Bir, and also from the south, many young guys are getting really good and motivated, and this makes me super happy because we need new blood. um, and the message for people would be just you need to really take the time and you need to be dedicated. There is no shortcuts, you know. And you need to put the hours in. You need to fly lots in different conditions, and don't hesitate to ask people, and be shy to get knowledge. I mean, nowadays the internet is such a big base. There is videos, there is all the kind of knowledge you need, but yeah, you need to be dedicated. I mean, and not take it as a joke. And the most important message I could give probably is never get overconfident. And I know that from my own experience. As you know, I learned when I was very young. And every few years I'd get very overconfident. I'd think I'm the man, I can do this, and then I would crash. I mean, I was very lucky, I never hurt myself, but I would have some incident. And that's always like a slap in the face to remind you that you have to be humble and respect the nature and the sport. So yeah, don't get overconfident is the biggest one. I mean, I recently had a slap as well after many, many years, and it was time maybe I was getting a little, not even overconfident, but just not checking enough or being a little too casual about stuff. You know, paragliding can be a very forgiving sport, and it can be very non-forgiving as well. You know, a small mistake can cost you a lot, whereas sometimes a big mistake you walk away from, you don't know how, amazingly. So you really have to respect the sport and the nature, and take things slowly. Never push too fast. Just take it slowly, and if you don't feel it, then you mustn't do it. That's one thing. If you're not feeling something, then just don't do it. Just take your time. You have all the time. The sky is there. So it's very important to take it slow and don't be overconfident.
Excellent. So, what is the next 5 years plan?
I don't really know my next 5 years plan because recently I just moved to France. As you know, my wife is French and we have small children, and we decided that maybe we try a life there, see what it's like. So I really don't know what the next 5 years would be. This year I've done 2 competitions and it's kind of getting me, I feel like doing a few more competitions, so maybe I'll do a few more competitions next year, and otherwise I'll continue my work with teaching, guiding, SIV, and doing some tandems. And yeah, I don't really know the next project for the next few years, but yeah, as much flying as possible, obviously, when I can.
Debu, thank you so much for sharing such a lovely experience of 20 years. And I'm sure this will inspire many young Indians. Thank you so much.
It was my pleasure, Badri, as always. Great to hang out with you and fly. And yeah, I hope it helps, and good luck.
Thank you all.
Okay, bye everyone.